Let's move on to our climate leader insight now on redefining banking and financing the clean energy transition. You've been spoilt with content today. We're delighted to have a former United States Congressman and presidential candidate joining us. John Delaney is the founder and the executive chairman of Forbright Bank, which he introduced just last week, as it so happens, as the next evolution of the congressional bank. Forbright is the first US bank dedicating half its assets to financing companies, investors, and innovators driving the clean energy transition and net zero economy of the future. John brings his unique mix of policy and private sector perspective to our next discussion. Now, he not only represented Maryland in the US House of Representatives for 6 years before his 40th birthday, making me feel very old. He also founded and led 2 New York Stock Exchange listed finance service companies. He was also, as if that wasn't enough, named one of the world's 50 greatest leaders by Fortune magazine in 2017. And John is joined by Billy Parrish, chief executive of solar financing platform Mosaic, to discuss financing the clean energy transition. Let's hear what they had to say.
Well, thank you, Mark, for that good introduction. And it is certainly great to be with you here today. I'm super excited to be joined by my good friend, Billy Parrish. Hey, Billy.
Hi, John.
How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Well, for those of you who don't know who Billy is the founder and chief executive officer of Mosaic. And Mosaic is one of the leading solar finance and technology firms focused on the residential market in the United States. And Forbright has a substantial business partnership with Mosaic, so I'm very familiar with the quality of the company. And I must say, when you talk to people in the residential solar industry, what you always hear is what a high quality platform Mosaic is and how terrific the team is. And I think that's because its leader, Billy, who we're fortunate to be joined with today, is an individual who is very much kind of mission aligned around the need to decarbonize the world. As a young man, way back in 2005, he led a hunger strike at the White House to protest what was inaction back then against climate change. We still don't have enough action against climate change, obviously. That led to him forming one of the largest kind of youth-based climate movements in the country. From there, he became an advisor and an investor in many clean energy companies, an advisor to nonprofits, to policymakers, and ultimately that led him to found and lead Mosaic. So it's not a surprise that Rolling Stone named him one of the 25 people shaping our future. So it's going to be a great conversation with Billy here today. So Billy, just give us some perspective. I mean, when you started Mosaic, you were kind of crowdfunding kind of individual residential solar loans, right, to basically start this industry. And now you're leading a company that securitizes billions of dollars of these loans in the capital markets. It's been an amazing journey. So from your perspective, I mean, where do you think this is going in terms of the private markets and residential solar and energy efficiency across the next couple of years?
Great. So good to be here with you, John, and to be with all of you. So I want to touch on a couple key themes about where I see things going over the next 5 or 10 years. And the first is that I believe we're going to electrify everything. Give a lot of credit to Saul Griffith and Alex Lasky from Rewiring America, who have broken the problem down in, I think, a pretty simple way. Right now, we get about 20% of our total energy from electricity, about a third from transportation, and then mainly oil, and then about half is heating and cooling, also mainly fossil fuel based. I think over the next couple decades, we're going to see all of that go to electricity. And Saul has broken this down into the fact that we need to transition about 1 billion machines. That is made up of vehicles, HVAC systems, water heaters, washers, dryers, stoves, and solar and storage units. So that's about 50 million of these machines every year that we need to build, deploy, and finance. And there are going to be significant energy efficiency gains as we move from a fossil fuel-based system to an all-electric clean energy system. But we'll see roughly double or triple electricity demand, which is a huge revenue opportunity for folks in the electricity space. Part of that is we're seeing a huge shift in the product and business strategies of some of the biggest players around the energy space. So Generac, which has dominated the home energy backup space, is moving towards electric batteries as the primary backup solution. Vivint, which is one of the biggest home automation companies, now selling solar as part of their home automation packages. GAF is the largest roofing manufacturer in the US. They now have a huge solar division, which is building solar roofing technologies. Ford with the F-150, the best-selling car of all time, now moving to the F-150 Lightning. So just big transitions in the sort of in and around the home electrification space that I think is really exciting. The second big trend is around the driving down of cost in the space. So I believe that the primary driver of the clean energy transition at this point is around cost. Fossil fuels have been flat or increased in cost as we've recovered the easiest to recover fossil fuels, and clean energy has been on an exponential decline in its cost, and to the point where it's now cheaper to build new clean energy plants than it is to operate existing fossil fuel plants. So, I think that we are going to need to continue to drive down the cost of clean energy to accelerate this transition and really complete the energy transition. And in the US, solar, there are huge opportunities to do that we've been really focused on at Mosaic. The US solar, residential solar is still being sold at 2 to 3 times what it is in other markets around the world. And a lot of that cost is in the soft costs, permitting and interconnection, which is very inefficient. We've helped stand up a new program called Solar App, which is streamlining the permitting and interconnection of solar and other electricity. The driving down the cost of customer acquisition, still a big problem in the US, as well as driving down the funding cost. So that's, I think, a really, really big part of driving this transition and getting to 100% clean energy in the coming decades. I also think policy is a big part of this. And John, you served in Congress, so I'm curious how you see policy playing a role.
Well, unfortunately, as you know, Billy, we haven't had enough good public policy in terms of driving this change, and the private sector has really had to step forward and be a leader, because there's been a void of good public policy. And the problem has really been the Congress. Obviously, there's still a huge number of climate deniers. It's hard to believe, but there's still a huge number of climate deniers in Congress, and it's made it very difficult for us to do the kind of things we need to do. Obviously, the current administration, the Biden administration, I think has been terrific, and the vision they've laid out is exactly what we need. But they need to get it done through the Congress. I think the bipartisan infrastructure bill is obviously quite positive. It's not transformative on climate, but it's got really good things around climate there. The reconciliation bill, which is obviously subject to intense discussions right now, it probably won't be as proposed, and it will likely be reduced in size. I'm hoping that as it's reduced, that they just don't shrink all the different parts of it, but what they actually do is they kind of transform it to be a climate-oriented bill. Because even though I support everything in that proposal, I do think the urgency around climate is fundamentally different. And I think there's an opportunity, both as a matter of policy and actually, quite frankly, as a matter of politics, for that bill to really become a climate-focused bill. And what's important there is the clean energy standard, or the clean electricity standard, depending how you think about it. And I would love to see that part of the bill. But I think, unfortunately, we're in a world where we won't have enough policy leadership. And so it's really going to take the private sector to drive the change that we need. I mean, as I think about the goal of decarbonizing the world by 2050, and you talked about this in terms of 1 billion machines, we're going to need to spend as a world $3 to $4 trillion a year between now and 2050, which is a huge investment. Effectively, what we're really thinking about or envisioning here is a reimagining of the entire economy, every aspect of the economy, particularly the 5 big food groups that produce a lot of CO2, energy, transportation, manufacturing, agriculture, and building. That's where so much of it comes from. And even if the government spends $2 trillion, it's over 10 years, that's 200 billion a year. That's a lot of money. But against 3 to 4 trillion, we realize the scale of this issue. And maybe the governments around the world can do $1 trillion. And hopefully that's in smart incentives, things like the clean energy standard. I'd love there to be a carbon fee. There's all kinds of things we need to do. But at the end of the day, the private sector's going to have to really step forward and drive this change. And I think it's going to force the private sector to change, not only in terms of this notion of multi-stakeholder capitalism, but it's going to really need to drive collaboration. Because the old model in the private sector was so much rooted in competition, right? And we're always going to have competition in business, but we need so much more collaboration, because the only way to get those kind of resources working against this problem is for us all to work together. And so as you think about Mosaic on that point, because you've got a terrific platform, big in residential solar, and you're expanding into lots of other areas, how do you see Mosaic unfolding as we think about these needs? And again, as I think about it, the need to collaborate, what do you see as the specific future for Mosaic going forward?
I love that theme of collaboration, and that's really how we approach the market. We think about the market as an ecosystem with a lot of different players, all of which are necessary to get us to this decarbonized economy. And when we think about the ecosystem, we think about the end users of the electricity, individuals, businesses, the manufacturers of the technology that will get us cleaner solutions, the developers and the contractors who go out and put those deals together and install them, and then the investors who finance the loans and leases and other financial agreements that are required to finance all of this equipment. And Mosaic seeks to be the payment method that facilitates the transaction. So really connecting the manufacturers and the contractors with the customers, facilitating that transaction, and then being a conduit to the ultimate investors in the financial contracts. And that requires a lot of different capabilities that we've invested in and continue to invest in around developing new financial products for these technologies. So we were the innovator in developing solar loan products, battery loan products, bundling solar with other sustainable home improvements. So we believe there are lots of new financial innovation opportunities with products that can accelerate adoption. There's also a big technology component, the point of sale application, as well as APIs that can offer that financing natively within the experience that the contractors, developers, or manufacturers have. There's a big credit and underwriting component. We have more solar loan data than anyone else in the market, so we use that to make better credit decisions and offer credit to more customers. And then there's managing that network of contractors and manufacturers and capital providers and all of the technology and systems around that. So we think about that whole ecosystem and how we can support each of the different players in that ecosystem in growing their own businesses and achieving what they want to achieve. And we're currently financing around 800 billion a year in clean energy. And like you said, John, we need to get to 3 to 4 trillion. So that's a 4 to 5x in scale. And we don't think that's going to be evenly distributed. You know, a lot of players we think will sort of continue doing what they are currently doing, and others will 10x or 20x or 50x their businesses to meet this need in the coming decades. And so we've been really focused on finding the partners that we think we can scale with, whether that's the manufacturers who we think are going to be the long-term winners in the verticals that we're focused on, or the capital partners who are really focused on this space and want to grow their lending in the space. So that's how we think about the ecosystem. And we're super excited about the partnership that we've built with Forbright. And I'd love to hear how you see Forbright playing a role in this scaling up towards 3 to 4 trillion of financing a year.
Well, first of all, it's really exciting what you've got planned for Mosaic. And, you know, it's basically continuing the trend line you've been on for a long time, right? And that power of compounding, if you will, makes it pretty big over time. So that's a great vision. I mean, Forbright is a bank. We're a fully, regulated and insured, FDIC insured institution. And banks play really important roles in our economy, obviously. You know, sometimes we take it for granted, but what banks do is they connect savers to borrowers and are indispensable to how economies work. And it seems to me that if we're actually going to reform and reimagine our whole economy along the lines that you just discussed to meet this challenge, we really do, and I say this with humility, we really do need a bank that's focused on building its business around this mission. And that's what we're really trying to do with Forbright, to take all of the inherent advantages that banks have, principally the ability to accept deposits that are fully guaranteed. You know, if someone puts a deposit in Forbright, it's the same as putting it in JP Morgan, and to use those deposits to drive change towards a goal of decarbonizing the world, which, by the way, we think a lot of depositors, both individuals and institutions, want. So we want to be that institution. And so the business, we've got about 250 professionals at Forbright right now. We've got about $10 billion of funding capacity. What we want to do is go out to great entrepreneurs like you, investors, innovators, operators, and help finance their business. Make them loans for growth, for working capital, for acquisitions, buy loans from them like we do with Mosaic, and just be that kind of indispensable financial partner that institutions need to grow. And by focusing on companies that are decarbonizing, which doesn't just mean clean energy companies, it means transportation, it means manufacturing, it means agriculture, it means building, it means any business that's playing its role in decarbonizing, software companies, all kinds of businesses, 3D printing companies, all the businesses that we need to decarbonize the world. We want to be, and we are, geared up to lend to them, to understand their business, be really fast, really responsive, give them loans up to $200 million, help them build their business, and be their banking partner. And, you know, and if we're successful at this, which I'm confident we will be, I think other banks will follow our lead. And that'll ultimately be a really good thing at the end of the day. So that's our vision. That's how we fit in. It's pretty clear what you're doing in terms of kind of reimagining kind of the energy efficient home of the future and driving that. But that's what has to happen. There has to be this tremendous collaboration of all of us kind of working together, which I know is what we're hearing from other participants in the conference here today. So we could go on for a long time about these topics, but I think we're coming up on our allotted time here, Billy. But I want to thank you for joining me here today. It was a great conversation, and Forbright really appreciates the relationship and the friendship we have with Mosaic. So it was great that you could join us today.
Thanks, John. Likewise, we have loved working with Forbright, and really grateful for the time together and our partnership and friendship.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Inspiring conversation there between Billy and John. Many thanks to both of them. We need to electrify everything. That's what's going to happen, according to John and Billy. A billion machines. We need to transition a billion machines. That's 50 million every year. The amount of investment and financing is $3 to $4 trillion a year. Policy is so important. Public policy, though, is lacking. Private policy is leading the charge and needs to continue to do so, but we need to collaborate. Yes, competition is important, but collaboration between the private sector is so important. Thanks to John, thanks to Billy, brilliant. If you have any further questions or anything you need to know about Forbright Bank, please do so. You know all about it. Virtual Expo. Connect with their team, ask questions, head their way. Please do on our Virtual Expo. Head to Forbright Bank. Brilliant. Thanks to John, thanks to Billy. That's it. Part 1 of session 3, or you know what I'm saying, day 3, part 1, session 1 of day 3. Brilliant. Thanks for staying with us. We'll be back in about 45 minutes time or so. We're going to take a shortish sort of break. Do complete the survey. Do use the break wisely. We need your feedback for greater impact. We want to hear what you've got to say. Please watch all the sessions on demand. If you missed anything, if you want to go back over something, on demand is where you get it on the event platform. Network, schedule one-to-one meetings, network, engage, connect, so important. Bringing this wonderful community together. Do visit, like I said, to visit Forbright, the Virtual Expo, gain access to exclusive insights and meet our partners, meet our sponsors as well, and register with us at COP26 in Glasgow. Under 40 days, 33 to be exact. We're there. Sustainable Innovation Forum, climate action will be there. Register online, www.cop26.uk. I'll see you 12 p.m. EDT. Don't you dare move.